I've put over 350 miles on these boots, and they're legitimately some of the best boots that I've ever owned. But at the end of the day, I don't think I would buy them again. I'll tell you exactly why in this video. I want to give these boots a fair shake, so I'm going to start with the things that I like, then I'll move on to the things that I feel are deal breakers for me. So one of the major things that I like about these boots is that they are actually waterproof. You can see on the inside here, you can see the GORE-TEX lining, and that's the real magic when it comes to waterproofing a boot. The outside, the leather, is also helpful for resisting water, especially when you've conditioned it, but it's that inner GORE-TEX lining that's going to keep the water out. And these boots have been incredible. I think they've kept my feet drier than any other boot I've been in. I've had other GORE-TEX boots, but I think they were just not designed as well, and maybe there were stress points where the GORE-TEX wore faster in certain areas, and so those boots would sometimes let in water. These boots have kept me dry in snow, in rain when I was wearing gaiters. I've worn them multiple days in a row, and even when the leather soaks through, the GORE-TEX will keep the water out and maintain a decent amount of breathability in the boot. Another thing I like about these boots is the overall durability. If you take a look at these boots, you can see that they are made from fewer pieces of leather than other types of boots that you might see out there, and that makes them very durable. There's less points for failure. They also have this rubber rand all the way around, and that helps to protect the stitching down here, helps to protect from scuffs when you're out hiking. Overall, it feels like a hefty boot. You know, it's not super heavy, but when you pick it up and squeeze it or try to bend it, you can tell that it's actually pretty well constructed and durable. It's got the double stitching along the edges here, and I think that's really helpful. So overall, it's just a very durable boot, and I've used it for multiple seasons now. Nothing has really started to show significant wear besides the tread, as you would expect. The tread has been great. It's got a little bit of wear. I think I will wear through the tread though long before any other part of the boot becomes no longer functional. One thing to mention about the tread is that these boots are actually resolable. And that is one of the reasons why I bought this boot. It's kind of more of a sustainable practice, right? I'm sure resoling the boot would cost half as much, if not less, than what I paid for it. And I just really appreciated that about the boot. I feel like we have a lot of shoes these days that are just glued together, and then they fall apart and you throw them away, and it kind of seems like a waste when we could be stitching shoes down like this boot. Now, some other things I like about this boot are the height. The 8-inch height gives you just enough security when you're walking through streams and also when you're walking through deep mud. Now, I don't always wear these boots when I'm hunting. Sometimes I wear normal running shoes, but it is nice to have a taller boot when there's mud or when there's snow. One of the things that I have to mention is the fit of these boots. When I put these boots on for the first time, they were some of the most comfortable boots out of the box that I've ever worn. And truly, they didn't seem to change from first wear through break-in. Really, they just felt the same. If anything, they became a little bit more comfortable. I mean, these boots feel great. I think Crispi does a good job of using some wider lasts that accommodate a normal foot better, and I really appreciate that about these boots. I think fit is one of those very personal things where one boot feels great on someone's foot and it doesn't feel great on another person's foot, but I hear a lot of stories about the Crispi last just being more comfortable than a lot of the competitors, and in my experience, that's accurate. So at this point, you may be wondering, okay, but what's wrong with them? If you have all these great things to say about them, you know, why wouldn't you buy them again? And so let's get into those details. My issues with the Crispi boots are less about specific flaws and more about the design overall. So let me explain. When I first got these boots, I had bought into the idea that because I was going to be carrying heavy loads in my backpack, I needed a stiffer, more supportive boot. And you know, it kind of makes logical sense. As hunters, we may have situations where we have to carry anywhere from 40 to 120 pounds, right? And so it would make sense that maybe you need some extra equipment to help protect your feet. The more and more that I wear these boots though, the more that I think it's just marketing. And there's a lot of marketing around these boots that talks about keeping your ankle stable and keeping your legs safe. Well, I don't really buy it anymore, and I want to explain a few reasons why. So first of all, these boots are a little bit stiffer than other boots. They're not the stiffest out there, but they are relatively stiff. And one thing that happens when you're wearing a stiff boot is that you completely lose ground feel. And ground feel is just being able to feel what's underneath your foot. So when I'm wearing these boots and I'm walking on anything other than a soft surface, say I step on a rock, the boot does not really conform to the shape of the rock. Instead, it wobbles around. And so it feels unsteady every step that I take on some sort of hard, uneven surface. And all of that unsteadiness is creating motion from side to side around my knee. Well, my knee is only designed to go one way, right? And all that extra motion can't be good for my knee. So that's concerning to me. Another thing is, a lot of people talk about ankle support, right? You want to lock in your ankle so that it can't move, and that way you'll stay safe with a heavy load. Well, again, I don't think this is the best practice. I think that messes up your biomechanics, and your ankle is actually made to be able to roll and move. And it's an issue if it's weak, but if you can strengthen your ankles and, you know, build up to a certain weight, then I think it's better to have your ankles able to roll and adapt to the surface that you are standing on. And that way it creates more stability for your whole body. So when I'm wearing these boots, even though they're marketed for stability, usually I feel less stable in them than when I'm wearing something that's more flexible and allows my ankle to move a little bit more freely. Another thing that you can't really knock the Crispis for, because it's so common throughout shoes in general, but something that I notice is the heel to toe drop. So if you're a runner, you might be familiar with this. It's just the difference in height under the heel versus under the toe. And where this really gets to me is when I'm going downhill, which I think is one of the major challenges in backcountry hunting, is hiking downhill, right? I'm already going steep downhill, and with that extra heel, it's just making the angle even steeper. And I don't like that at all. When you're trying to go downhill, your foot actually flexes down this way. And oftentimes if you go downstairs, you'll find that you're putting your toe down first as you're walking downstairs. But when I've got this big honking heel right here, it's much more likely that I'm gonna hit my heel first. My foot and lower leg is not going to do its job to reduce the shock, and all of that impact is gonna go up through my knee and hip. And I don't want that to happen at all when I have a big heavy pack on. So I think modern manufacturers in general should go to having less of a heel. We don't really need it anymore because we have modern materials that wear much more evenly, and I think everybody would be served well by using a bit of a flatter shoe. Another issue I have with these boots is just how heavy they are. Each boot weighs about 2 pounds, and if you've ever heard the saying that 1 pound on your foot equals 5 pounds on your back, that references an old military study where they found that 1 pound on your foot takes as much energy to move as it would take to move 5 pounds in your backpack. And so that's pretty significant, and I don't know any hunter who wouldn't get rid of 5 to 10 pounds in their backpack if they could. And that's kind of the difference that you have between wearing something like this and a lighter boot or even a trail runner. I start to notice the difference when I've been hiking 8 to 10 miles, especially with a heavy backpack. It's significantly easier and uses less energy to use a lighter shoe. So I recommend you give it a try and see how you feel. especially on those uphill climbs, those long days. I think you'll find that a lighter boot makes you feel a lot better. Now, the last thing that I have to mention is that these boots are typically listed for $440. And for most of us, that's a lot of money. Now, you can often find them on sale for about 20% off, and I think that better reflects the actual value of the boot. But even at around $350, which is what I got my boots for, that still is a lot of money. You can argue that they are going to last you longer than other boots, and so far that seems to be the case. It may be worth it because they're resolable, but it's still just a lot of money to spend on a boot, and it could be prohibitive for a lot of hunters. So I hope now you kind of understand whether this boot is for you. It's really more about the style of the boot overall. And I think for many hunters who want that more traditional overbuilt style, it really is a good boot. It's durable, it's waterproof. What more could you want? But for myself, I'm gonna be looking for something lighter, something that supports my natural mechanics a little bit better. I could be convinced to look at a lighter version of a Crispi boot because the build quality is definitely there. Just something lighter with a more flexible sole. Otherwise, I'll probably look into a shorter boot or even a trail runner, and then just use gaiters when the conditions are muddy or wet or snowy. So that's what I'm intending to do. We'll see how that turns out. I'll keep these around for wet and snowy conditions until I wear them out. I've sunk $350 into them, and I'm not just gonna let it go to waste. But overall, I think I'd look for something else. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful for you. Drop a comment below and let me know what type of boots you use. I'd be really interested to know how many of you use heavier, more traditional style boots, and how many of you have moved to lightweight boots or even trail runners. So let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to get more content like this. And if you're preparing for a hunt and you're not sure what to bring, go check out my next video.